All right, let's talk about a new piece of tech that could seriously shake up how we make cartoons and anime. It's called ToonComposer, and it's an AI that's taking aim at one of the biggest, most grueling bottlenecks in the entire animation pipeline. Okay, so to really get why this is such a game changer, you've got to understand the sheer scale of traditional animation. I mean, we're talking about artists creating hundreds of individual drawings, all by hand, just to get a few seconds of smooth movement on screen. It is an absolutely massive and meticulous amount of work. And yeah, for decades, this is just how it's been done. So let's quickly walk through that traditional workflow. It's definitely a labor of love, but man, it is also a serious test of endurance. It all starts with the creative spark, right? That's keyframing. This is where the senior artists draw the most important poses in a sequence. But that little spark is buried under a mountain of manual labor. First comes the repetitive task of inbetweening, drawing all the little frames that go in between those key poses. And then you have to color every single one of them. It's a huge grind. So, naturally, the AI world looked at this and thought, hey, we can automate that. But the first attempts, well, they weren't exactly a home run. They created what we can call the two-step AI problem, and it turned out to be a pretty flawed fix. See, these early AIs tried to just copy the human workflow with two separate models, one for in-betweening, one for coloring, and it was just clunky. The in-betweening AI would get confused by big, fast movements, and the coloring AI needed a new detailed sketch for every single frame. But the real killer? Something that researchers call error accumulation. It's like a game of telephone. A tiny mistake in that first step gets passed to the second step, which then makes it even worse, and you end up with all sorts of weird glitches in the final product. This whole situation was kind of a dead end, and it forced researchers to go back to the drawing board and rethink the entire process. And that's what led them to a much, much smarter way of doing things, the post-keyframing breakthrough. Now this right here is the secret sauce. This is what makes ToonComposer so different. Post-keyframing basically throws out the old rulebook. It doesn't see drawing the frames and coloring them as two separate jobs. Instead, it merges them into one single, unified, intelligent AI process that does both at the exact same time. And you can see the difference right here. The old way was like a fragile assembly line, where one mistake early on could mess up the whole thing. But the new workflow is completely integrated. You feed it the important drawings and a color reference, and boom, it generates the final high-quality video in one go. That whole problem of cascading errors, it's just gone. So, with all that background, let's officially meet the tool that makes this whole new workflow possible. This is ToonComposer, the all-in-one solution. ToonComposer basically has three superpowers that make it work so well. Sparse sketch injection just means an artist only needs to feed it a few key drawings to guide the entire animation. Then there's the Spatial Low-Rank Adapter, which is super clever. It teaches the AI a specific cartoon style without letting it forget the basic physics of how things are supposed to move. And finally, my favorite, region-wise control, which actually lets an artist leave parts of a sketch blank, and the AI is smart enough to just fill in the details. Of course, these are all some pretty big claims. The researchers knew they had to prove it wasn't just talk. So they put ToonComposer to the test in a head-to-head showdown with those older AI methods. Which, brings us to the one question everybody asks when they hear about new tech like this. Okay, but how much better is it really? Well, the visual results were pretty much night and day. The paper says the competing models would often spit out distorted faces or lose important character details between the main drawings. ToonComposer, on the other hand, consistently delivered animation that was clear, smooth, and, most importantly, stylistically perfect from start to finish. And the hard data backs it up. They did a study with professional artists, the people who would actually use this tool, and the results were a landslide. A massive 71% of them preferred the animation from ToonComposer. This wasn't just a slight improvement, it was an overwhelming win. So what does this all mean for the future of animation? Let's zoom out a bit, because this is about a whole new dynamic. It's about seeing this tech as the animator's new co-pilot in this evolving relationship between art and AI. And look, the researchers themselves are really clear about this. This is not about replacing artists. As they put it, the whole point is to augment creativity. By automating the most boring, repetitive parts of the job, Artists are finally freed up to focus on what humans do best: the creative keyframe design, the storytelling, the performance, the actual art. And that leaves us with the pretty incredible final thought. For 100 years, the ambition of animation has always been chained to the sheer amount of time and labor it takes. But now, with tools like ToonComposer coming onto the scene, we have to ask a really exciting question. What new worlds, what amazing stories will creators bring to life when their biggest limitation is no longer the clock, but only the bounds of their own imagination?